Welcome to the step-by-step, line-by-line video tutorial for the Form I-131 application for travel document. My name is Mark Daly and I'm an immigration attorney, and I'm here to walk you through this form so that you can get advanced parole, which is another fancy word for saying a travel document, while you're waiting for your green card based on marriage to a U.S. citizen. Now, the first thing I need to do is make a disclaimer that I'm not going to be advising you personally on how to fill out the form. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going line by line and step by step through the form with you, describing what the questions are asking. We're going to be reading the instructions together, and I'm going to expand on what they're actually wanting you to provide to them in order to get this travel document. I'll also be giving you, telling stories and giving you examples of the way things might go wrong if you do it wrong, based on my experience of having done a lot of things wrong in the past. And so you're going to benefit from my mistakes and learn a lot as we go through this. And the reason why I'm not advising you is because I can't hear your story personally. When I'm here in my office and I'm talking to my clients, I hear their stuff, hear their stories, and then I advise them based on what they've told me. Well, you're not here, I can't do that. So everything I say, you have to listen with the ear for learning on a tutorial type of basis and not getting advice you can actually rely on. So that being said, we're going to go and look at a screen capture now directly with the USCIS. Okay, so here you have it. This is the home page of the USCIS, and it's located at uscis.gov. Now what we want you to do is we want you to go to this home page and follow along with us click for click as we go through this document. And we're going to start by clicking on immigration forms right there. And this is the part where it talks about all the forms, and fees should be made payable to Department of Homeland Security or U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And this form is numbered I-131. So let's scroll down to I-131. Here it is, application for travel document. Great. To apply for a travel document, re-entry permit, refugee document, or advanced parole. Filing fee is $305. Okay. Now, with this application, you do not need to pay a filing fee when you file it with the I-485, 765, I-130, all the rest of those documents. So we don't need to do that. Now let's look at the instructions for completing Form I-131. We always start with the instructions to get the overview of what's going on these applications. They're very, very helpful. Instructions for Form I-131, application for travel document. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to come on this website, you're going to print out the instructions, you're going to print out the application, and you're going to have it there while you're filling out these applications. The idea is that you will fill in the application Form I-131 by hand in pencil and make all the mistakes you need to make, because that's the way we learn. So filling it all in, making your mistakes, and then after you've done that, then you can go onto the website and you can type in the forms, because these are fillable forms on the USCIS website. So for right now, we're going to go and look at this instruction, and it says here, first thing, please read these instructions carefully to properly complete this form. If you need more space to complete an answer, use a separate sheet of paper. Write your name and alien registration number, if any, at the top of each sheet of paper, and indicate the part and number of the item to which the answer refers. Now this application, we're going to have a sheet that we attach for sure. So when we're doing that sheet, we already know how we're going to set it up. We're going to write, you probably don't have an A number right now if you've just come in on a non-immigrant visa, like a tourist visa or something, and you're here trying to adjust your status with a spouse. So You're not going to write your A number on the top of the page, but you will write your name and you will put the question number that will be referencing in the answer and attach it to the document. So here's a little something on updated filing address information. The filing addresses provided on this form reflect the most current information as of the date this form was last printed. If you are filing Form I-131 more than 30 days after the latest edition date shown on the lower right-hand corner, please visit our website at www.uscis.gov before you file and check the Forms and Fees page to confirm the correct filing address and version currently in use. And that's true with all of these forms. Now I'll give you a heads up on this. Because we are including this form with all those other forms, we're going to use the filing address for the main form, which is the I-485. That's the application to adjust status. So, and that's what they call the Chicago lockbox. So we know right now that that's what we're going to be doing, but we're going to still check the address every time we file. And so we do have a video tutorial on procedures, and in that procedures video tutorial we show you where on the website you can check and cross-check all the addresses that you're going to be using to fill these out. And it says here, if you do not have internet access, call the National Customer Service Center at 1-800-375-5283 to verify the current filing address and edition date. Improperly filed forms will be rejected and the fee returned with instructions to resubmit the entire filing using the current form instructions. And this can be such a problem for your advance parole, because the issue with advance parole is always the same. A person is going to file their adjustment of status to get their green card, and it's going to take about 6 months, 9 months, maybe a year to get the green card. And while they're waiting for the green card, they're not allowed to travel without one of these travel documents. And it's very, very severe penalty if you travel without a travel document. What happens is once you leave the country and try to come back in without a travel document, they're going to say, well, you have abandoned your adjustment of status application and all the filing fees you filed with it, and you need to stay outside of the country now and process that application at the consulate in your home country. Now that is a bummer. So you got to make sure you've got one of these advanced paroles. Parole is a word that's used in immigration law, and what it means is that you're going to be allowed in the country in the same status as when you left. So the status you're going to have after you file this adjustment of status application is going to be that of a pending adjustment applicant. It's this gray area. It's not a visitor, it's not a permanent resident, it's somewhere in between, and it's a pending adjustment applicant. So you want to come back in and pick up that status where you left off. So that's why you need advance parole, meaning you file for it before you leave. You capture and maintain that status of the pending adjustment applicant before you leave the country and come back in. So that is very important. What is the purpose of the form? Let's find out what the purpose of the form is. I just explained it to you, but here it says here, advance parole document. An advance parole document is issued solely to authorize the temporary parole of a person into the United States. The document may be accepted by a transportation company in lieu of a visa as an authorization for the holder to travel to the United States. An advance parole document is not issued to serve in place of any required passport. So that means you've got to have your passport when you travel with your advance parole. Very important. Advance parole is an extraordinary measure used sparingly to bring an otherwise inadmissible alien to the United States for a temporary period of time due to a compelling emergency. Advance parole cannot be used to circumvent the normal visa issuing procedures and is not a means to bypass delays in visa issuance. It's kind of strong language there, actually. And so, however, you do have a right to travel in and out of the country. So what they're saying is that it's an extraordinary measure to be used sparingly. So when we're applying for advanced parole, we are going to want to communicate to the USCIS a good reason for wanting to travel in and out of the country. Note, if you are in the United States and wish to travel abroad, you do not need to apply for advanced parole if both conditions described below in A and B are met. A. You are in one of the following non-immigrant categories: an H-1 temporary worker, or H-4 spouse or child of an H-1, so yeah, there's been some of the people who have H-1B visas can have it in their passport and it's still valid. So if you entered on an H-1 and you are filing for your green card, you still have your H-1B visa in your passport, yes, you can travel on that visa. Same thing with an L-1 intercompany transferee or L-2 spouse or child of an L-1, K-3 spouse, K-4 child of a U.S. citizen, or a V-2 spouse or V-3 child of lawful permanent resident, and a Form I-485 application to register permanent residence or adjust status was filed on your behalf and is pending with the USCIS. However, upon returning to the United States, you must present your valid H, L, K, or V non-immigrant visa and continue to remain eligible for that status. So if your visas have expired, this is not going to work for you. And so they say you don't need to have advanced parole if you're doing that. However, do I advise you to get advanced parole? You know, I like having advanced parole. I mean, then it's really clear that you're going to be coming back in. You want to stay in your pending adjustment applicant status, and to keep things really clean. So that's why I like to do that. Who may file Form I-131? Who may file? Well, let's see where it says our status. Let's see. Refugees get one, a refugee. Here you go, advanced parole document. Travel warning regarding unlawful presence. This is a big issue. I'm glad they're bringing it up. Before you apply for an advanced parole document, read this travel warning carefully. If you have been unlawfully present in the United States for more than 180 days, but less than 1 year, and you leave before removal proceedings are started against you, you may be inadmissible for 3 years from the date of departure. If you have been unlawfully present in the United States for 1 year or more, you may be inadmissible for 10 years from the date of departure, regardless of whether you left before, during, or after removal proceedings. Unlawful presence is defined as being in the United States without having been inspected and admitted or paroled, or after the period of authorized stay has expired. Is there anything else on here? However, certain immigration benefits and time spent in the United States while certain applications are pending may place you in a period of authorized stay. These include, but are not limited to, a properly filed adjustment of status application, temporary protected status, deferred enforced departures, asylum, and withholding of removal. Although advanced parole may allow you to return to the United States, your departure may trigger the 3 or 10-year bar if you accrued more than 180 days of unlawful presence before the date you were considered to be in a period of authorized stay. Therefore, if you apply for adjustment of status after you return to the United States, resume an adjustment application that was pending before you left, or return to a status that requires you to establish that you are not inadmissible, you will need to apply for and receive a waiver of inadmissibility before your adjustment application may be approved or your status continued. Generally, only those persons who can establish extreme hardship to their U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident spouse or parent may apply for the waiver for humanitarian reasons to assure family unity or when it is otherwise in the public interest. See sections 209C, 212, 244A9 and 244C of the Immigration Nationality Act for more information on unlawful presence and the available waivers. So that is a lot. Now, when we are talking here in step-by-step immigration forms about this package that you're doing, which is a marriage-based application, we're talking about a person who entered legally. Okay, so they are able to adjust status. However, there are times when people overstay their visas. Now, they're still allowed to adjust their status. However, they will accrue, they will build up this unlawful presence from the date that their visa expires. So, for instance, if someone comes in on a tourist visa, they enter legally and it's good for 6 months, and they stay for 6 months and 1 day, they have accrued 1 day of unlawful presence. They've credited 1 day of unlawful presence. So if they remain in the country for 6 more months and they get 6 months of unlawful presence, 180 days, it says right there, when you leave the country, you're not going to be able to come back for 3 years. It's called the 3-year bar. Same thing, if you stay more than 1 year and you get a 1 year of unlawful presence, so 6 months and then the 1 year of unlawful presence, there's a 10-year bar. Now, that is a real problem, and when you leave and come back in, you can't get back in because of the bar. In my experience, sometimes they might let you back in to finish the adjustment of status, and they might let you file that waiver of the 10-year bar here in the United States. However, more often than not, you're not going to be let back in the United States, and you're going to be forced to finish that application outside the country and file for that waiver outside the country. So it says here, although advanced parole may allow you to return to the United States, your departure may trigger the 3 or 10-year bar if you accrued more than 180 days of unlawful presence before the date you were considered to be in a period of authorized stay. See, once you file for your adjustment of status, that begins another period of authorized stay. So while you're getting your adjustment of status, you're not going to gather more days of unlawful presence. And what that means is if someone comes in on that tourist visa and they are here for 4 months, all right, and then they come in for, cancel that, they stay there 6 months and they overstay 4 months, okay, they have 4 months of unlawful presence, and then they file that adjustment of status, they're not going to be subject to the 3-year bar because they haven't stayed 6 months. The adjustment of status stopped the gaining, the accrual, the compilation of unlawful presence, and that way they can go ahead and leave the country and come back in without getting that 3-year bar. So it says here again, therefore, if you apply for adjustment of status after you return to the United States, resume an adjustment application that was pending before you left, or return to a status that requires you to establish you are not inadmissible, you will need to apply for and receive a waiver of inadmissibility before your adjustment application may be approved or your status continued. So that's the waiver of inadmissibility. This 3-year or 10-year bar is a basis for what they call inadmissibility. You can't admit, you cannot be admitted into the United States because you have this bar. So the bottom line on this type of an application is if there's any question about the 3 or 10-year bar, don't leave the country until you get your green card. When you get your green card, your permanent residence, then you don't have to worry about this 3 and 10-year bar anymore. Okay, so that's just the way that it works, and it's very heartbreaking for someone to run aground by this 3 or 10-year bar. And if you have any more questions about this, you should really consult an immigration attorney, because we can look at your entry date. We can some types of status don't actually accrue unlawful presence, like a student F1 visa. Even though you overstay that, you don't accrue unlawful presence for some reason. And some Canadian tourists also, they come in and it's called duration of status. That's the status that you can remain in and not start to build unlawful presence. But this is way beyond the scope of this video tutorial. And so if you're concerned about unlawful presence, you've overstayed your visa, and you want to travel outside of the country, you really need to talk to an attorney about that. Okay. If you are in the United States and seek advanced parole, you may apply if you have an adjustment of status application pending and you seek to travel abroad for emergent personal or bona fide business reasons. Emergent is like emergency. Or you may apply if you have been TPS. You don't need that. You may apply if you're a refugee. Well, we're not worried about that. And then warning, if you have a pending application for asylum, we're not worried about that. But it is a good point. Look, if you have a pending application for asylum and you return to the country of claimed persecution, it will be presumed that you abandon your asylum application unless you can show that there were compelling reasons for you to return. Political asylum is all about, I can't go home because I'm afraid I'm going to get killed if I go home. And then you travel to back home on advanced parole. We're going to go, must not have been that scary to go back home, was it? So that's something you definitely don't want to do. And here, an advanced parole document may not be issued to you if you held J1 non-immigrant status and are subject to the 2-year foreign residence requirement as a result of that status. So that's important. You do not want to be traveling on, well, yeah, if you leave, it could be a big problem if you have a J1 visa with a 2-year foreign residence requirement. They're going to say, oh, why are you coming back in? You can't even adjust status. It could really unravel. You're in exclusion, deportation, removal, or rescission proceedings. If you travel before the advanced parole document is issued, your application will be deemed abandoned if you depart from the United States or the person seeking advanced parole attempts to enter the United States before a decision is made on the application. So those are some of the issues that I talked about. So traveling while you're in this status it's not advisable unless you have a really clean case. General instructions: fill out Form I-131. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to do that. Initial evidence. We may request additional information or evidence, or we may request you appear at USCIS office for an interview or for fingerprinting. You must file your application with all the required evidence. If you do not submit the required evidence, it will delay the issuance of the document you are requesting. That's true. All applications must include a copy of an official photo identity document showing your photo, your name, and date of birth. Example: a valid government-issued driver's license, passport identity page, I-551 permanent resident card, or any other official identity document. So for us, it's going to be a driver's license. You don't have a permanent resident card yet. That's what we're actually applying for. So a driver's license, a passport identity page, just make a Xerox copy of the identity page of the passport. That works really well. Copy must clearly show the photo and identity information. A Form I-94 arrival departure document is not acceptable as a photo identity document. Why? Because there's no photo on an I-94. Okay. So here, if you are applying for advanced parole document, if you are in the United States, which we're going to be dealing with, you must attach a copy of any document issued to you by USCIS showing your present status in the United States. So if you have an I-94 card or a visa in your passport, or maybe a receipt from a change of status showing that you changed to an H or an L or some other kind of visa status. You want to give your entire background because they want to make sure that you haven't accrued unlawful presence. So they're really trying to help you out here. They're going to double check to make sure they don't send you out so you get barred when you come back in. An explanation or other evidence showing the circumstances that warrant issuance of an advance parole document. That's another way of saying a letter saying why it's an emergency or a business reason to leave the country. If you are an applicant for adjustment of status, a copy of a USCIS receipt as evidence that you filed the adjustment application. Now, when we do this, we file them all together, so you don't need to put that receipt. If you're going to file it later on, then yeah, you would file it with the receipt, but we're going to bundle everything together. So you're going to stack those documents right underneath the application, and the application is going to ride right on top. And then if you are traveling to Canada, apply for an immigrant visa, a copy of the U.S. consular appointment letter. Okay. If you are applying for a person who's outside the United States, which we're not doing, we don't have to deal with that. Photographs. If you're outside the United States and filing for a refugee document, we don't need that. Outside the United States, don't need that. I thought we needed to put photos with this application. Let's see, biometric services requirement. If you're between the ages of 14 and 79 and you are applying for a refugee travel document or reentry permit, okay, that's not us. Invalidation of travel document. Any travel document obtained by making a material false representation and concealment of this application will be invalid. That's good. Copies, translation, expedite request instructions. If you really need to travel fast, there is an expedite procedure. Let's go over that right now. Expedited applications for re-entry permit or refugee travel document. Okay, we want expedited advance parole. When mailing in this request, please notate the outside of the envelope with the word expedite. It is recommended that 2 prepaid self-addressed express mailers, email addresses, and a fax number be provided with any expedite request for re-entry permit or refugee travel document. If the expedite request is granted and you provide prepaid self-addressed express mailers, we will use the prepaid mailers to send you the ASC appointment notice and travel document upon completion. If you do not provide prepaid mailers, the appointment notice and travel document will be sent via regular mail. Now let's talk about the expedite request instructions. In my experience, what we've done in the past, okay, may not work in the future, but what we've done in the past is that we have marked up our advance parole applications when we're doing a cover letter with all of our documents listed. We put a big bold application for advance parole expedite and listen the explanation about that. And then the emergency reasons, we will put documents like letters from people who can testify that what we're saying is true. If there's medical reasons from family members who are dying overseas, we would put the medical expenses. If there are real estate deals that are going down, then we would put copies of the real estate deals. Business contacts, we'd have letters from the businesses and the business owners supporting that we need to do that. All that stuff's very important to include in the application. You send all that up asking for the expedite request. Then when you get back the receipt for the advance parole and showing that it got accepted, you can take the receipt to the local immigration office or sub-office and ask them to give you the advance parole on the same day. And then you bring all the original documents with you. You may send copies up to the immigration service and you give the original documents and you make your case. And oftentimes they will give you advance parole that same day and you can go ahead and travel quickly. So that's been my experience on that, and we've been successful on representing people. But we give a lot of documents, a lot of photographs of the business or the people. A picture's worth 1,000 words. So, and then we go and we act very respectfully and request that they give us the advance parole, and we'll bring a couple of passport photos with us when we go to the application center or to the district office. Now, I didn't say it on this application, but on these instructions, but as far as I know, you need to include 2 photos attached to the advance parole application. So even though I didn't see it on there, I think it's a good idea to do that. So, and then here is the stuff on the addresses here. Advance parole for adjustment of status application, Form I-485, filed with the USCIS Chicago lockbox facility. Says submit Form I-131 either concurrently with Form I-485, which is the way we like to do it, or alone to the same address you used to file your I-485 application. A complete list of the adjustment of status applications filed with the USCIS Chicago lockbox facility is found on Form I-485. So they're referencing Form I-485. This is your principal green card application form for permanent residence. So this application for advance parole is piggybacked and bound up with that other application, all going to the same place. And let's see if there's anything else that they're saying in here that we need to know about. Don't think so. Okay, great. What is the filing fee? It says $305, but we know, note here, if you filed Form I-485 application to register permanent residence on or after July 30th, 2007, and you paid the I-485 application fee, then no fee is required to file a request for advance parole. So that is great. And I think that is it. Change of address information there. Processing information. Yes, this is the standard thing. If you don't sign it, it's going to be rejected. And you may correct the deficiency and resubmit the Form I-131, but if you're in a hurry to travel, that's always a real pain. They might request an interview, request more information. I've never had that happen. And the decision, and then what if you claim non-resident alien status on your federal income tax return? Well, yeah, what about that? You could be inadmissible. It says here, if you are an alien who has established residence in the United States after having been admitted as an immigrant or adjusted status to that of an immigrant, and are considering the filing of a non-resident alien tax return or the non-filing of a tax return on the ground that you are a non-resident alien, you should carefully review the consequences of such actions under the Immigration and Nationality Act. If you file a non-resident alien tax return or fail to file a tax return, you may be regarded as having abandoned residence in the United States and as having lost your permanent resident status under the Act. As a consequence, you may be ineligible for a visa or other document for which permanent resident aliens are eligible. Now that is a tough bind there. You may also be inadmissible to the United States if you seek admission as a returning resident, and you may become ineligible for adjustment of status as a permanent resident or naturalization on the basis of your original entry. So it's just saying there, if you're going to be a resident here, don't file something that says you're a non-resident. If you're a resident, you got to reside, you pay taxes, it's the whole thing. You go all the way. Okay. So those are the big issues here that are brought up by this instruction sheet, and I'm really glad we walked through it. So now let's go back, and that was the instruction sheet. Let's go to the form, I-131. Okay. It says here, please fill out the following form. You can save data typed into this form. So that's nice. So again, you write it down on your, in hand on your printed out copy, and then you can fill this thing out and you can save it on your hard drive or print it out. yeah, save it on your hard drive. That's a nice thing. Okay, information about you up here at the top. A number if you have one. And if you don't have one, then you're going to type like I type, none. I like to use caps on this stuff too, none. Date of birth, 02/21/1963. Class of admission. Okay, actually, you know what? I've been using 64 as the date of my imaginary wife is coming in. Class of admission. She came in as a tourist, her last class of admission. So we're going to put tourist, no, T-O-U-R-I-S, tourist, B2. Gender, she's a female. Name, family name in capital letters, Daly, first. Jane, second. Gomez. Now I like to put the first name and the second name, first letter uppercase and the rest lowercase, so it's really obvious what's the last name and what are the first names. Now in this situation, if the name is different from the name that's in the passport, because you're married now, let's say her maiden name was Herrera, then you know you have a situation where if you're going to travel and you want the travel document to say Daly, you're going to want to travel with your marriage certificate that shows your maiden name is Herrera, and then with your passport where your maiden name says Herrera, you have this document that will bridge your maiden name to your married name. So that way things can get cleared up at the border that way, because they want to make sure this is for the right person. So 631 Second Avenue South. Apartment number, I go suite 20, Nashville, Tennessee 37210. Country, USA. Country of birth, Mexico. Country of citizenship, Mexico. Social Security number, if any. She doesn't have any. And we're not talking tax ID number, we're talking actual Social Security number there. Okay, got it? Great. Application type. We're going to go down to D. I'm applying for an advanced parole document to allow me to return to the United States after temporary foreign travel. Invalid Social Security number. Yeah, right, that's okay. It just pops up. You just keep on going. All right. This next part is if you check F here, I'm applying for an advanced parole document of a person who's outside the United States. If you check box F, provide the following information about that person. So we don't deal with this. So we keep on going. Now, a lot of times I'll put not applicable, and I think I do that on this one too, just so that there's no confusion by those people who are reading these applications. Processing information. Date of intended departure. So you can put down the date and that you intend. Now intent, you know, is a thing where it's about the future, what you expect to happen. So if you really feel it's urgent, you might want to put down ASAP, which I've done before. But if you do have a closing date on a piece of property, or if there's a date certain of a big party that you have to go to, or you know, a funeral or something, then you got to put that date down. But I'm just going to put down ASAP here, and then enter two dates. Well, I know they want me to put a thing down, but it will accept letters instead of numbers, so that's good. Expected length of trip. If I'm not quite sure, I'll put 2 weeks down, or a month maybe. Are you or any person included in this application now an exclusion, deportation, removal, or rescission proceedings? No, because we know that if you are in that, you're going to get an attorney to fill this thing out, because you do not want to get hung up at the border trying to come back in. Here, if you are applying for an advanced parole document, skip to Part 7. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Now here's this box, information about your proposed travel, but it's Part 4, so we're not going to put our stuff there. 6, here we go. Complete only if applying for advanced parole. On a separate sheet of paper, please explain how you qualify for an advanced parole document and what circumstances warrant issuance of advanced parole. Include copies of any documents you wish considered. Okay, so this is our situation where we're going to make sure that we fill out an attachment that is properly notated. So let me go ahead and grab a Word document here. All right. Now, name. Ding. Daly. Jane. Gomez. Let's see what numbers. This is Part 7. Okay, Form I-131, Part number 7. Let's go back and review the question that they want us to answer. Please explain how you qualify for an advanced parole document and what circumstances warrant issuance of advanced parole. See, there's so many different ways that people can have advanced parole documents. We want to describe the way that we are getting it. So here's what I say. I am entitled to an advanced parole document because I have married a U.S. citizen and an immigrant visa is immediately available to me. And I have filed forms I-130 and I-485 to adjust my status to a permanent resident. Great. But wait, there's more. I have not been unlawfully present for more than 180 days and am not subject to any grounds of inadmissibility. So that tells them right there that you're not going to be nailed by one of those 3 or 10-year bars, because that's important to them. They want to know that you're not going to get hung up and you're going to get back in and you're going to be able to get your permanent residency. So there's the reasons why I'm entitled. Those are kind of how I qualify for an advanced parole document. Now let's talk about what circumstances warrant issuance of advanced parole. This is how I qualify. The circumstances that warrant my receiving advanced parole are as follows. I have been away from my family for many months and miss them dearly. I also have urgent business to take care of regarding my bank accounts, real estate, and automobile. Put that down. Please find attached letters from my family, from my business partner, my bank, and my real estate agent, along with the receipt or title to my car. And of course, we're going to be polite. Thank you. Let's scroll this up. Did you get all that? It may have been down here behind my picture. I'm sorry about that. Thank you in advance for your professionalism and assistance in this matter. There we go. And I also like to do this final touch, dated, signed. There you go. I'll read it again. Daly, Jane Gomez, Form I-131, Part 7. I am entitled to an advance parole document because I have married a U.S. citizen and an immigrant visa is immediately available to me, and I have filed Forms I-130 and I-485 to adjust my status to a permanent resident. I know it's kind of run-on-y, but you know what? It gets the job done. I have not been unlawfully present for more than 180 days, and I'm not subject to any grounds of inadmissibility. That lays it out. The circumstances that warrant my receiving advance parole are as follows. I have been away from my family for many, many months. Let's put a comma there. It's saying that I've got too many's in there. Well, I like to be urgent, so I want to plead many, 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 many months and miss them dearly. I also have urgent business to take care of regarding my bank accounts, real estate, and automobile. Please find attached letters from my family, from my business partner, my bank, and my real estate agent, along with the title to my car. Thank you in advance for professionalism and assistance in this matter. Dated, signed. This is kind of a bare bones minimum that you would use, and if you have more urgent and more compelling stuff, please put that in. Okay. Include copies of any documents you wish considered. Great. For how many trips do you intend to use this document? One trip, more than one trip. I like to put more than one trip because then they'll give you 2 advance parole documents, and you never know when you're going to need one of these things. An emergency might pop up, and it's nice to have one there so you can leave if you have to. If the person intended to receive an advance parole document is outside the United States, which we're not, so we don't have to worry about that. If the travel document will be delivered to an overseas office, which it won't, then we don't have to deal with that. And then we're at the end here. Signature. I certify under penalty of perjury. Everything is true and correct. Sign it here. Date it here. Telephone number here. That is the I-131. we did it. So there's one other thing that I want to check on. DOS digital photo specifications. I want to see if we can confirm this is about how the photos are, but there's somewhere in here that has the photo specification sheet, and I'm going to look at this. Because I'm a very curious person. It's not giving me the photo specification sheet. So, general directions on immigration forms. Let's see if we got this here. Photographic requirements. Yeah, you will need to know the specifications for these photographs. Well, I would say that add those 2 photos with this application. And things are always changing, but I believe that is the best way to go with this. So that is where we're at with the Form I-131. You've just completed it. Good work.